Okay, Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In our class last week, we looked at hadith mawdu', which is basically fabricated hadith. We also, we focused on the factors which contributed to the fabrication of hadith. And there were various factors which we discussed. Some of them include political, theological conflicts, socio-cultural conflicts, personal interest or personal gains, asceticism and overzealousness. Yeah, so these were some of the factors which contributed to the fabrication of hadith. Before we move on, so inshallah, I think since last week we only had one live lecture per week. I think we'll maintain it that way. I've looked at the syllabus and inshallah it is sufficient for us to cover the topics included in the syllabus if we continue doing this on a weekly basis, inshallah. For the final exam, it will be an open book exam. The details of how we are going to conduct this open book exam will soon be notified to all of you, inshallah, because we have not been informed yet about the details of how this exam is going to be conducted. But don't worry, inshallah, maybe in the next few weeks, we will inform you of how this open exam will be conducted. But basically, it's a take-home open book exam whereby you will be given a duration, perhaps 24 to 72 hours to complete the questions, and you will be allowed to refer to books or other resources to answer those questions. I hope everyone is doing fine. Hope everyone is coping well, and let's pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the situation will become better, inshallah, and that we will be able to conduct face-to-face classes semester 1 2020-2021, inshallah, which will commence in October, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, let's begin with the topic at hand today, which is al-Jarh wa ta'dil, which is an important aspect of the sciences of the Quran, because it deals with the credibility of the transmitters. As we have seen, or as most of us know, hadith consists of two main components, which is the sanad or chain of transmitters, and also the matan, which is the text itself. And when it comes to the criticism of the transmitters, we are basically criticizing the sanad. And it is quite fair, or I would say, it is quite fair to actually say that many hadith scholars gave due importance to the study of the sanad in verifying or in establishing the position of a hadith, whether the hadith is sound, whether it is authentic, sahih, hasan, agreeable, da'if or weak, or even forged. So criticism of the sanad is a very important aspect in the sciences of hadith in determining the authenticity or the position of the hadith in question. So what is al-Jarh wa ta'dil? Let's look at the slides. It is basically the accreditation and discreditation of transmitters. So accreditation here is a ta'dil, while al-Jarh is the discreditation, of transmitters. So what we are dealing with here is the credibility of the transmitters. So al-Jarh basically is to discredit a transmitter by proving whether he was ever declared a fabricator of hadith, or a liar in daily conversation, or whether the transmitter was of poor memory, or whether he was ever declared as unidentified, majhul, etc. So basically, to discredit the transmitter here, that is known as al-Jarh, discreditation. At-ta'dil, on the other hand, is to establish the worthiness. So literally, at-ta'dil means to establish the worthiness of something. So when it comes to the sciences of hadith, at-ta'dil here is to accredit a transmitter by establishing his or her position as either wholly trustworthy, merely trustworthy, or acceptable, so on and so forth. So basically, a ta'dil is to establish the credibility of a transmitter, while al-Jarh is to discredit the credibility of a transmitter. So what is the justification of al-Jarh and al-Ta'dil? Yeah. Is it permissible for one to say such and such is a liar, such and such is a fabricator of hadith? Is it permissible for us to say so, or does it fall under the category of riba, the category of backbiting? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu an tusibu qawman bijahalatin fatusbihu ala ma fa'altum nadimin. O you who have believed, if there comes to you a disobedient one with information, investigate, lest you harm a people out of ignorance and become over what you have done regretful. So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us how to deal with information. Yeah. So if a news or information is being brought to us, we have to evaluate. Yeah, we have to evaluate, investigate, because the consequences of fake news is detrimental. Yeah. So in this day and age, we know with the advent of social media, how news can travel very fast. It is important for us, when we receive any information, to actually pause and investigate whether the information we received is actually worthy of being spread or being forwarded, because we have to ensure the news that we receive and that we forward is of credibility. Okay, so even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us this on the basis of this verse, Surah al-Hujurat. So the son of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal narrated that Abu Turab al-Nakhshabi once came to his father Imam Ahmad when Imam Ahmad was talking about so and so. So he was saying so and so is weak and so is reliable. Abu Turab thereupon stated, O Sheikh, do not slander or commit ghiba upon the man of knowledge. My father turned towards him and said, woe unto you, this is nasiha, not slander. Yeah. So here people were questioning the act of Abu Hanifa of saying that one is weak or that one is reliable. So here Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal was basically crediting or discrediting a person, yeah, or persons. And Abu Turab was uncomfortable with Imam Ahmad doing so, but Imam Ahmad justified that this is not part of backbiting, but instead this is part of counsel or nasiha. Okay? And then we have another anecdote from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was reported by Aisha radiallahu anha, in which a man asked permission to see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, let him come in. What an evil man of the tribe he is, or what an evil brother he is. So here the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam commented about the person who sought permission to see him. And Aisha radiallahu anha witnessed this and heard what the Prophet ﷺ had to say about this man. But when this man entered, the Prophet ﷺ spoke to him gently in a polite manner. So Aisha said to him, O Allah's Apostle, you have said what you have said. Then you spoke to him in a very gentle and polite manner. So the Prophet ﷺ said, the worst people in the sight of Allah are those whom the people leave undisturbed to save themselves from their dirty language. So here the Prophet ﷺ said that despite the man being described as evil, the Prophet ﷺ did treat him in a good manner because he did not want for that man to retaliate with bad language, which would cause a sin, basically. So here, the act of the Prophet ﷺ mentioning to Aisha radiallahu anha that the man was an evil man of his tribe was not considered ghibah, is not considered backbiting, because the Prophet ﷺ was in fact describing the character of this person, the true character of this person. So when it comes to the credibility of the transmitter, there are two main issues that we have to pay attention to. Firstly, it's adalah, which is basically the justness, the trustworthiness, or the moral integrity of the transmitter. So the key word here is the moral integrity of the transmitter. So this has to do with adalah. Secondly, we have to pay attention to al-Dhabt, to the person's precision, sound memory, or accurateness, or meticulousness of the transmitter. So here we are dealing with the intellectual capacity or the intellectual, or I would say the accurateness of the transmitter when he's transmitting hadith. So this has to do with the person's intellectual capacity or intellectual capability. So this is known as al-Dhabt. Al-Adalah, on the other hand, has to do with the character or the moral integrity of the transmitter. So there are two main components here when we are talking about the credibility of the transmitter. So these are just some of the prominent critics of hadith, yeah, those who were prominent critics among the Sahaba, who Umar, Ali, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Salam, Ubadah bin Samit, Anas bin Malik, and Aisha radiallahu anha. And then we have among the Tabi'een, Sayyid Sha'bi, the Sirin, Sayyid Musayyib, Sayyid Jubair. So this is just to provide you or with information about persons or about figures who were considered to be prominent critics, yeah, when it came to hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is a book by Scott Lucas about constructive critics, hadith literature, and articulation of Sunni Islam, which talks about the importance of hadith criticism in Islamic history, or in Sunni hadith scholarship, whereby it examines the conceptual and historical frameworks of the study of Sunni hadith scholarship, and also the collective probity of the Sahaba, the discipline of hadith transmitter criticism, and also a historical vision of the authoritative channels by which hadith traversed the 2 centuries between the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the first major hadith books. Yeah, so this book basically traced the science of hadith criticism and provides us with a historical framework of the study of Sunni hadith scholarship. This is just to illustrate the importance of hadith criticism, which is part and parcel of the sciences of hadith. So Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, when ranking a transmitter, generally he has categorized transmitter into 12 categories. The first being the Sahabi or the companion, whom I specify as such because of their nobility. So when it comes to the companions, there is the saying, kulluhum udul, all of them are trustworthy. Yeah, all of the companions are trustworthy. So when at the level of the companion, one need not investigate whether the companion transmitting that hadith is trustworthy or not, because all companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam are considered to be trustworthy. Okay. And then narrators were emphatically praised either by using a superlative such as most reliable, awthaq nas, or by repeating a word of praise in words such as trustworthy, trustworthy, thiqah, thiqah, or in meaning such as reliable, a great memorizer of hadith, thiqah, hafil. So a narrator or transmitter who is emphatically praised either by using a superlative or by repeating the word of praise or in meaning such as reliable, great memorizer of hadith. So after the Sahaba comes this category of transmitters. Then we have narrators who have been praised with a single word such as thiqah, trustworthy, or masterful, mutqin, or strong, thabt, or upright, adl. So this is category number 3 of the transmitters when it comes to the rank of transmitters. And then we have a narrator who is a little less reliable than one of the third level. These are the narrators for whom which Ibn Hajar uses a word such as truthful, saduq, or he is alright, la ba'sa bihi, or there is nothing wrong with him, laysa bihi ba's. Okay, that is level 4. At level 5, we have a narrator a little less reliable than one of the 4th level. So this is the narrator to whom Ibn Hajar refers with words such as truthful but weak of memory, saduq, sayyi'ul hifz, or truthful but he does err, saduq, yahim, or he does have some errors, saduq lahu awham, or he makes mistakes, yukhti, or he changed at the end, taghayyara bihi akhirihi, or narrators accused of some kind of innovation when it comes to creed, for example, if the transmitter is accused of being a Shi'i, a Qadiri, or Nasibi, etc. So this is at level 5, and narrators who might be tainted by some problems. And then at level 6, we have narrators who have few hadith, and there is no evidence that would call for leaving the hadith. These are the narrators for whom Ibn Hajar used a word like maqbul, like the person or the transmitter here is acceptable. And then we have at level 7, narrators from whom more than one person has reported, but there is no definite judgment about them that they are reliable. They are the ones whom Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani refers to with the words of undisclosed quality, mastur al-hal, or unknown quality, majhul al-hal. Yeah. Why? Because even though more than one person transmits hadith from this particular transmitter, there is no definite judgment about them that they are reliable. Then we have narrators whom no one whose word counts has judged as reliable, while there are descriptions of them as weak, though such aspersion are not detailed. These are the narrators whom Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani refers to as weak or daif. And then at level 9, we have narrators from whom there isn't more than a single narrator and whom no one has definitely judged reliable. These are the narrators whom Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani refers to as majhul, meaning that only one person transmits from him or her. Yeah, and no one has actually established that the transmitter in question here is reliable. So this transmitter will be labeled as majhul or unknown or unidentified. At level number 10, we have narrators who have not been judged reliable at all, who have been judged weak because of a damaging accusation. They are the ones whom Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani refers to with words such as discarded, matruk, or his hadith are discarded, matruk al-hadith, or weak in hadith, or wahi al-hadith, or dropped, saqit. So this is at level number 10, whereby these transmitters are labeled as weak, yeah, because there are certain damaging accusations against them. Then we have at level number 11 transmitters who have been accused of lying, and finally we have transmitters who have definitely been identified as liars, kadhab, or fabricator of hadith, wallah. So that is the worst level, level number 12. If a transmitter falls under this category, this is the worst level, yeah, because it is confirmed that he has lied and that he has fabricated hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is just to illustrate the ranks of transmitters of hadith, which will then affect the position or the soundness of the hadith in question. Having said that, there are some common principles when it comes to al-Jarh wa ta'dil. So the attack by someone who can be seen as a competitor or having a certain disagreement should not be taken into heavy consideration. Yeah. So if an-Nasa'i was saying something about Ahmad ibn Saleh al-Misri with regards to his credibility or his trustworthiness, and vice versa, if Ahmad ibn Saleh was talking about Imam al-Nasa'i, their words or their judgment of each other is not to be taken into heavy consideration because they were competitors. Okay. Similarly, in the case of Ibn Abi Dhi'b versus Malik, and also Yahya ibn Ma'in versus Imam al-Shafi'i. Okay. And a narrator may be reliable when he narrated in a certain town but not in the other. So there is that possibility that if a narrator, his narration in Kufa, for example, was accepted, however, his narration in Medina, this is just an example, is not accepted due to various circumstances, because the environment also might have influenced the transmitter. So Yaqub ibn Shaybah stated that traditions reported by Hisham are reliable except those that are reported through the people of Iraq. Yeah, and Hisham was the one who reported the story of Aisha's marriage. This year is, if I'm not mistaken, in relation to the age of Aisha radiallahu anha, when she married the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Hisham was the one who reported the story of Aisha's marriage to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the people of Iraq. So in this case, Yaqub ibn Shaybah states that the narrations or the traditions of Hisham are all reliable except those which were reported to the people of Iraq, meaning that while he was in Iraq and he transmitted hadith, this hadith likely unreliable. So that is al-Jarh wa ta'dil. So the main takeaway from al-Jarh wa ta'dil is we have to define what al-Jarh means, what al-Ta'dil means. Yeah, al-Jarh basically is to discredit a transmitter, while al-Ta'dil is to establish or to accredit the transmitter. And when we talk about Jarh wa Ta'dil, there are two main aspects when it comes to the credibility of the transmitters. Number one is the moral integrity, al-Adala, yeah, that has to deal with his trustworthiness, yeah, integrity. And secondly, al-Dabt, which deals with his intellectual capacity or capability, such as his precision, his level of memory, his accurateness, meticulousness, etc. So that is the most important takeaway from this lesson on al-Jarh wa Ta'dil. And again, we can justify the act of accrediting and discrediting a transmitter on the basis of the verse in Surah al-Hujurat, and also anecdotes from the example given just now, the example of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, who says that the act of discrediting or accrediting a transmitter is basically nasiha, it's basically counsel, yeah, and not part of ghibah, and not to be considered as backbiting. So that is al-Jarh wa Ta'dil. Now we shall move on to ilmu al-Ruwat, which is basically the science dealing with al-Ruwat, dealing with the transmitters, yeah, which mainly deals with the indexes and biographical dictionaries of hadith transmitters. Unfortunately, we cannot play this game. If we had face-to-face classes, this game would be quite entertaining for us to play. Yeah. So Imam al-Bukhari reported that he heard Ali ibn al-Madini once said, his teacher, yeah, Ali ibn al-Madini once said, التفقه في معاني الحديث نصف العلم ومعرفة الرجال نصف العلم. The understanding the meaning of hadith is half of knowledge, and recognizing the narrators is half of knowledge. So here again we come back to the components of hadith. We have the sanad, which is basically the chain of transmitters or narrators, and the matan, which is the text of the hadith from which we can derive meaning. Yeah. So here Imam al-Bukhari is reporting from his teacher the importance of these two aspects, yeah, ma'arifah al-rijal, the knowledge of the transmitters, and also the understanding of the meaning of a hadith at hand. So to know the transmitters, there are several ways. Yeah, there are several ways, and there are various books written down on transmitters of hadith. So we have, for example, the Tabaqat genre, which basically represents a biographical dictionary of early generations sorted based on cohorts. So usually the list of narrators who received from the same teachers, yeah, or informants or narrators who were of the same age group. So they were arranged according to cohorts. Yeah, for example, the teacher A, who were the students of A? XYZ. And they would explain who were X, who were Y, and who were these X, Y, Z. And then we have the Tawarikh genre. So with the emergence of the Tashih movement, Tashih here means the authentication movement of hadith, the Tawarikh genre, transmissional biography, was introduced. The aim was to supply the hadith evaluation activities with information on the narrators. So we have, for example, At-Tarikh by Ibn Ma'in, and also At-Tarikh al-Kabir by Imam al-Bukhari. Okay, so here the main aim of the Tawarikh genre was to provide hadith evaluation, is to provide information on transmitters for the purpose of hadith evaluation activities. Yeah. And then we have the Thiqat genre, whereby in this genre of books, the compiler would collect or would list down the trustworthy and acceptable narrators. And on the opposite, we have the Du'afa genre, which basically lists down the transmitters who are considered to be weak. Yeah. And then we have also biographical dictionary of the companions of the Prophet Sallallahu Mu'jam al-Sahaba. So these are all books which dealt with biographies or indexes of the transmitters. Then we have the canonical Ruwat genre, yeah, which basically is index of narrators traced in specific canonical collections. So whereby in certain canonical collections of hadith, they would include or they would discuss the transmitters of hadith which were included in such collections. You have geobiographical dictionaries, for example, Tarikh Madinah al-Salam by Khatib al-Baghdadi, or Tarikh al-Dimashq, the history of Damascus by Ibn Asakir, which would mention or would tell or would inform about the people from that particular region. And then we have the nativity and obituary indexes, which is basically dictionary of narrators arranged based on the year of birth or the year of demise. Yeah. So for example here, Wafayat al-Ayan, yeah, by Ibn al-Khalikan here, which basically informs of the dates of death of transmitters. And then we have the new tabaqat genre, yeah. So in this case, individuals were arranged according, for example, yeah, to their school of legal thought. So we have tabaqat al-Hanabila, the rank of scholars in the Hanbali school of legal thought, for example, or tabaqat fuqaha al-Shafi'iyya, yeah, those who were considered to be experts in the Shafi'i madhab, so they were arranged according to their ranks. And we have other examples, tabaqat al-Fasilin, tabaqat al-Tiba', ranks of physicians, tabaqat Sufiyah, ranks of Sufis, etc. So basically all this genre of books, one would find a description, yeah, a description or necessary information about individuals, including transmitters of hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this could be used as reference in determining the continuity of the sanad, in determining the soundness of the hadith in question, because here we are dealing with ma'arifatul rijal, which is the knowledge of transmitters, which would have an impact on the soundness of the hadith in question. So that is basically al-Jarh wa Ta'dil, yeah, the science of the discreditation and accreditation of transmitters, and also a brief introduction to al-Ruwat, whereby we looked at several genres of books in which one could find information about transmitters of hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I hope you have benefited from this brief lecture. If you have any questions, further questions, please do not hesitate to ask me via WhatsApp, email, or even comments on Twitter or Facebook. I still have some difficulty in streaming on YouTube, but don't worry, I will upload this lecture on YouTube, inshallah ta'ala. So stay safe, everyone. Personally, I still find it quite odd conducting online lectures, and I'm still looking for ways to improve and the delivery of content for this course, and I appreciate any forms of suggestions, taking into consideration that there might be certain limitations which all of us might be facing at this point of time. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.